mateys! I am so glad that you could be here today. My name is Rich, the channel is called New Memphis, and this week we're painting two scurvy dogs from the Blackstone Fortress box set. Those being UR-025 and Amallyn Shadowguide. Really hope I didn't butcher those. I don't know that much about 40k lore. I was raised on Star Wars. I just like painting. We also had a big development this week over here at New Memphis. I finished my very first campaign in Total War Warhammer 3. It was a short campaign victory, and, it only took like 400 hours, but I did it. And specifically, I did it as Silostra Direfin. Or I suppose I should say, Silostra Diafan. Bretonnians. But after spending all those hours turning Ulthuan into an undead, war-torn hellscape, I thought there was no better way to celebrate the Vampire Coast than by theming this week's project after it. Although, this week will be split into two, because unfortunately I just couldn't fit everything into one video. And I was afraid it would just become so big and unwieldy that it was just better to split it up. So this week we're ending on a work in progress, and this Friday we're going to come back and do the highlights for these models. Hope you guys will be here for that, and I also want to take the time to give a big thank you to Original Content, our supporter on the Patreon who chose this week's project. He is the one who chose for us to do the Man of Iron, if I may say. Excellent choice, sir, and you all can thank him down in the comments section. If you want to have input on what the next project will be, as well as access to some other new projects I'm going to be announcing in the next day or so, I recommend you check out the Patreon for yourself. There's plenty of free content that's there as well. So I thought this week might be a good time to actually skip over beer because we're doing pirate theme. I unfortunately don't have any rum, but what I do have is coffee and Kahlua. So I've taken about 2 shots of espresso, gonna just about match that, maybe go a little bit higher on Kahlua because, no reason to pour without a heavy hand. Let's get started. Starting off this week, I should confess, I had a lot of trouble figuring out what I wanted to do with these models, even after I decided on the pirate theme. It probably didn't help that I don't really like Eldar models all that much, and Shadowguide's model is, well, probably my least favorite in this entire box. I ended up rushing into getting them primed, but came back later and decided they needed some serious kit bashing. So I pulled out some Lizardmen pieces, then some spare Imperial Guard, Corn Demons, other assorted parts, maybe sprinkle in some Imperial Knights, and bing bang boom, you got yourself a model right there. Okay, here's what I ended up actually using. A few Lizardmen pieces for Shadowguide, Imperial Guard, Corn Demon, Night Haunt, and even more Lizardmen for our Man of Iron. And here they are afterward, looking much improved if I may say so myself, and looking straight from the coasts of Lustria. Just don't ask what happened to that poor Corn Demon. For once, I actually remembered to apply the basing material before we prime them. Well, before we prime them again. All of our Blackstone Fortress models use a combination of super glue and Elmer's glue to create our Arctic-themed bases. Here they are after priming. Shadowguide herself has some pretty egregious mold lines, but I think with the right paint job, we can cover those up. I am very excited to break out the old gold for these kit-bashed pieces. Hopefully it'll make them look like ancient relics. Very nice. After that, we'll use London Grey for the main body of our Man of Iron. And to help hide those mold issues, we'll paint Amallyn's cloak in black. Then I think black-red will be a good choice for her armor. Pretty heavily thinned, though. Since I had a lot left over, we'll also use this black-red on a few places, just for flavor on 025. Here's a check-in so far. They are far from done, but I think this is a great start. I was having trouble even seeing some of these details, so washing them will be our next step. Oxide brown for Amallyn Shadowguide, and black for our Pirate of Iron. Perfect. Again, far from done, but they really make those details pop. To contrast with the red and gold, we'll use flat green for Amallyn's hands. And to make it look like he just climbed out of Davy Jones' locker, a very thin emerald for 025. And to further cement his sea legs, we'll add a touch of dark Prussian blue, dry brushed carefully from just the underside. That's really starting to add some depth. Next, we'll do a very careful dry brush of white from above. We need to be very careful with this, and it still got away from me in a few places. After that, we applied one more layer of black wash to both models and added a thin layer of white to fix the bases. Remember to like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Also, remember that these are a work in progress. And quite frankly, let's just get on to the good part. So, I'm going to go a bit lighter this week, but I do still want to talk about two things that I like about the models and one thing I want to try to do better next time, or in this case, correct in next week's episode. To start off with, that relic on Amallyn Shadowguide's back looks absolutely amazing. I was not a fan of that big rifle she was carrying, but I think that this, with the angle that it's at, looks much better for a model of this size. And speaking of size, I originally thought the plasma cannon for 025 was going to be too small because it's just a regular plasma rifle that's supposed to be held by a guardsman, but it actually turned out to be the right size, which makes me think the Man of Iron should be a bit bigger, but yeah, whatever. As for one thing I want to do better though, that harpoon gun, it's just not quite there yet. I think with the right coloring, it's going to come together, but it's just not quite there yet. And it's supposed to look like trash that was thrown together by space pirates so they could just have a weapon. So it's very thematic in that sense, but it needs work. It's something I'm really going to be focusing on next week. But what do you guys think? Feel free to let me know down in the comments section. Leave suggestions if you think that there's something you want me to do. Join the Patreon if you want to help have input on what models we paint next. And I'll see you guys in the next one.